Welcome to episode 35 of Posture Labs and Alignment Fundamentals. My name is Emma, and I'm taking you through this series of short videos to help explain common yoga poses, correct alignment, and different modifications. In this week's episode, we are covering Paschimottanasana, or seated forward fold, a very, very common yoga pose. Now, let's go ahead and jump right into things. We're going to start in a seated position. Usually I demo things from the side and the front. I think this one is definitely most beneficial from the side, so I'm going to start there. Now your legs are extended, but there's a few things I would like you to do before you start the pose. First is use your hands and kind of move your butt back. You want to feel the bony part of your butt pressing down, and the bigger part of your butt is behind you. This helps you to tilt your pelvis forward already without even hinging. So a lot of people, if you don't do that, we're sitting kind of on the back of the butt and you're rounding. You feel like you can't reach your feet. However, if you just kind of wiggle your butt back a little bit, maybe you still can't reach your feet, and that's okay, but at least now your pelvis is tilting forward, so you get a little bit of that rounding out of your lower back, and maybe you can reach a little bit further. So that is my first tip. Move your butt out of the way. If you feel weird doing that in class, don't. But if you do, it's okay. It's kind of a natural process. We all have stuff on our butt. I mean, we just got to move it out of the way so you can do the pose correctly. If you feel weird, you can just try to kind of wiggle into it instead if you don't want to touch your butt. That's okay. My second tip here is to bend your knees. So I mentioned this in a lot of my yoga classes that in any sort of fold, whether we're standing or seated, I really do encourage you to bend your knees. We do a lot of folding in yoga. We do a lot of stretching of the hamstrings. It's very easy to injure your hamstrings or pull your hamstrings when you practice a lot of yoga because it's a lot of folding and stretching the back of your body. So to help minimize that, I like to bend the knees here. You're still going to get the same amount of stretch, but you're going to get a little bit more reach and more length through your spine. So, butt back, knees bent. Now, I like to reach up and try to lengthen the sides of my body, but I don't want to shrug my shoulders up by my ears. I just want to get length through my waist. Then I like to imagine I'm casting a net over my feet. So I'm reaching. Maybe I do grab my feet. Maybe it's my ankles or my shins. But either way, this is the important part. I want my belly on my thighs and my ribs kind of crawling down my thighs. I want these glued together. That's going to help ensure that my lower back is flat and straight, not rounding. If it's rounding, I have space here. So I really want to crawl the ribs down the thighs. Maybe today I grab my ankles. I can stay here. I would prefer to see a student stay here than straighten their legs and reach their arms forward and shrug their shoulders up by their ears. So focus first on the lower back being flat, then pulling your sternum forward and your shoulders back. Like I mentioned in last week's episode, you don't want to be leading with your chin. There's no need to compress your cervical spine here. Try to lead with your third eye center or between your eyebrows, your forehead. Pull your chin in slightly towards your throat. So that way you can feel your sternum going forward, your shoulders plugging back. Maybe eventually you do start to straighten your legs, but only if you can keep this belly to thigh connection. Now, if you've got the feet, or even if you don't have the feet actually, I'd like you to keep your feet flexed, toes pointing up. That's going to shorten and engage the front of your body, helping you fold a little bit more. And if this is quite easy for you, think about pushing the inner edges of your feet forward and pulling the outer blades back. You want to keep squeezing your lower abdomen like you're pulling your belly button back towards your tailbone. That's just going to help you keep the engagement and keep the connection of your stomach to your thighs. As you do this, you'll start to feel more stretch through the back of the body. And come out whenever you'd like, obviously. Now, there are ways, if you would like to use a strap instead, you could wrap a strap around your feet. Same idea. I really want you to focus on the stomach and the ribs to the thighs as a stepping stone. That's not really an optional step here. That's really going to help you stay safe in your forward folds. It's the same idea in an Uttanasana forward fold. Most people here, they immediately straighten their legs and they're rounding and they think this is as far as they can go. But if they would just bend their knees a little bit, think about lifting the tailbone up, crawl your ribs down your thighs. You can get more fold even if your knees are bent. And I promise you, even as someone who practices yoga often, pretty much every day, I still feel a nice big stretch through the back of my legs with my knees bent. So there's absolutely no shame in keeping your knees bent, whether you're in a seated fold or a standing fold. I would prefer you to keep your spine safe and get the full benefit of the pose. If you're really flexible, you could always place a block out in front of your feet and reach for that instead. Keep in mind, there are certain things that make poses easier or more challenging for others. So for example, someone who's pregnant will not have room to do this pose fully. So a strap would be great so they can get the length through their spine without folding and compressing their belly. Another example would be, like me, someone who has short legs. It's a lot easier for me to reach my feet or even bind my hands around my legs because my femur bone and my shin bone aren't super long, so I can easily reach that distance. If I had longer legs, which I wish I did, I might not be able to reach my feet, and that's okay. So just keep in mind there's many factors that make poses possible or not possible for different people. Try to focus less on how it looks and more on how it feels. I hope this was helpful. If you have any other tips, tricks, or modifications for Paschimottanasana seated forward fold, please go ahead and let me know in the comments below. I love to hear your feedback. I will see you back next week for episode 36.